Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Sarah from Penobscot Marine Museum. Please post questions and comments below. We love questions. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. We've got some paintings of a woman named Dollie Smith. She was born in 1824. And she lived on Mount Ephraim Road, which is right next to our museum. And so you can actually walk to where she is buried. And she painted the local people, um, and local Maine scenes from living in Searsport in Penobscot Bay. This is Jonathan Gilmore. He married Hattie M. Erskine. They both lived in Searsport, and we can actually see Hattie down here. She's in this little miniature in the corner. And we've got, he likes to read. We have a history of England. So he's that kind of guy. There's a thick gold chain for his watch tucked in his vest there. On the ship R.B. Fuller, Captain Gilmore was lost at sea in April of 1877. He was on his way from Burma to England. And it was Hattie who commissioned the painting that Dolly made. And Dolly painted it from a photograph. We think that several of Dolly's portraits, she made over 20, almost 30 portraits in her life that we know of. And several of them were painted as a memorial after the subject's death. She used photographs a lot, also for people that were alive when she painted them. And this is one of them, Jeremiah Merithew. He was a self-made businessman. He went to sea as a boy and rose in the ranks to sea captain. He started a shipyard. He started a bank. He was in the state legislature. And we have the photograph that she used to make the painting. This is the photograph of Jeremiah Merithew. And we can see how close they are to each other. If you want to trace or copy an existing image onto a canvas, there's several methods you can use, and many of them in the process end up flipping the image into a mirror image. And so she clearly used one of those techniques here. The silhouette is exact. We look at the slope of the shoulders. So I'm guessing she traced out the silhouette of the painting, of the photograph, in order to make her painting. So looking once again at Dollie Smith's paintings, she was a local painter here in the same town that our museum is, in Searsport and Penobscot Bay. This is Harriet Hichborn McGilvery. She married Sea Captain William McGilvery, and she accompanied her husband on his journeys several times in the beginning of their marriage. After retiring from sea, he built a shipyard and he launched 42 vessels. And although she was in a very privileged class, Harriet had multiple hardships throughout her life. 3 of her children died. One of them, her daughter, also named Harriet, died on her honeymoon. Her husband, William, also died in 1876, and apparently it was a suicide. Dolly painted Harriet's portrait from an older photograph, and she chose to show Harriet in an earlier and perhaps happier time. Dollie Smith's obituary lists her as having studios in Boston and New York City. We don't actually have any record from Boston or New York City, and that makes me wonder if maybe her paintings were sent down to a studio, but maybe she didn't go down there herself. We don't know for sure, but that sounds to me like she had someone take her paintings to sell in a gallery down in the big cities where it might be a little easier to sell them. We don't have any record of her traveling any farther than that. And so this image of European castle very likely was painted from a print. But she puts lots of fun images in here. There's a lady in a pink dress and a hat and some recreational boaters, ivy and birds. This is another one that probably was done from a print. I'm just guessing by looking at these kind of plain brown rocks. But this image I find is fun and kind of evocative, even if it's a little bit stylized. The location is unknown, but it's interesting that she includes local details like these wildflowers, a flat-topped aster and goldenrod. And I can see goldenrod just like this out my window right now at this time of year. So it's interesting that I should mention that although she did a few landscapes, most of her images were portraits. And whoops, let's go back to what we're talking about today. It's interesting that at this time, these people had photographs, but they still wanted these oil paintings. So it suggests that the oil painting had a particular feel for these purchasers. Um, they must have felt that a painting was superior in some way, that perhaps it was more traditional or respectable. Perhaps it was more exclusive, suggesting a higher status. And in Harriet's picture, Dolly does an amazingly detailed image of her clothes and jewelry. We have almost photorealism in the shiny gold metal and pearls, and the lace is incredibly detailed. So looking at portraits and landscapes from Dollie Smith, a local artist who lived right near our museum. This one's one of my favorites. This looks very Maine with the river and the big rocks, a lot of cows in the background. It suggests the paintings of Frederick Church and the Hudson River School artists who were illustrating this grand, wild American landscape. And I'm entertained by these boaters. And this one is sketching, which is a fun self-reference. Once again, we have wildflowers and ferns, trees. This is a really lovely one. Interestingly, the local newspaper at this time mentions several times that there are articles about women hiking in the Maine wilderness, and they are sketching and they're painting. And this is a fun thing that women of a certain class are doing. For Dollie Smith, however, painting is her trade. She's trying to make a living. Her father was Richard Smith, a farmer. Her mother was Hannah Carver, who was from a family of wealthy sea captains. And I'm very interested that so many of the children and grandchildren of this family became painters. Was, you know, painting and music are considered refined. They're appropriate training for girls and young women of a certain class. So was Dolly trained by her mom in these cultured pursuits, which that side of the family valued? But then did the financial reality of being one of 7 children of a farmer uh, require Dolly to turn to her painting into a trade? I will probably never know, but it's an interesting question. Um, One of Dolly's brothers set up a shop where he was grinding and selling paints. One of Dolly's nephews went into the trade of painting scenes for the theater. And a niece of Dolly's was commissioned to make a couple of panoramic paintings of the Civil War that were sent abroad.
Interrupt you to say thank you for everybody who is watching, and especially to Kevin and Virginia and Karen who have liked your video.
Thanks.
And Sipperly has a question, and we remind everybody that's watching, we encourage you to ask questions in the comments section. And Sipperly asks, why don't they smile in the portrait?
That's a great question. Um, if most of the portraits being from a photograph, photographs in the 19th century didn't have quite the same technology as we have today, in that it took a very long time to make the exposure. So if you're sitting there for, let's see, when they were doing daguerreotypes in the early 1840s, it might be a whole 20 minutes that you might be sitting there waiting for them to take the photo, and you're not allowed to move, because if you move, that'll just make a blurry photo and you won't be able to see it at all. So you have to stay very, very still. And that may be part of why they look serious, is it's just hard to hold a smile in the same way for a long time. But it also could be that you didn't get as many photographs as you do today. I mean, now we have unbelievable numbers of selfies posted on social media, but in those days, you might have only one painting made of yourself your entire lifetime. You might only have a few photographs in the second half of the 19th century. So it's a very important occasion. It's a serious occasion. And so you might be wanting to look serious instead of frivolous, perhaps. That's a great question. We love questions. Feel free to ask more. You can post them below. We have an authors and artists tour on our campus if you're interested and you're nearby, where we talk about some of the artists that we have art of on our on exhibit that you can see. And we also have passages from writers who are writing about living in this area and being on boats. And it's fun. I recommend it. This portrait of Clara Nickels is, in my opinion, the best combination of Dolly Smith's landscapes and portraits. It's one of her best pieces. It has Absolutely beautiful details. Trees, a beautiful Maine landscape of hills and water and a sailboat, which is something we are lucky to get to see when we're on our campus. We can look out to the water from the hill that we're on. And beautiful detailed flowers, lace, or maybe that's cut work, embroidery, and shiny curls, her blue eyes, and a jaunty and very realistic shoe off of her foot. How many times have you put a sock or shoe back onto the foot of a toddler? Dolly Smith painted from her mid-20s until her death in 1891. And she was the primary portrait painter in Penobscot Bay during her time. At Dolly's death, local women held teas and other entertainments to raise money so that they could buy one of Dolly's paintings to hang in uh, town hall. And then that money could go to the family to buy a tombstone for Dolly. And we actually found it. We went to the cemetery. We can walk there from our museum. And we searched around and found the tombstone that the local women raised money for.
So that's spelled differently. Have you found in your research that she spelled her name in different ways?
That's a very good question. The book I have about her spells it Dolly. So yeah, what does that mean? Does that mean that the ladies spelled it wrong, or does that mean her family spelled it IE, but the authors of my book didn't for some reason? I don't know. That's a very good question.
I also have a couple comments and questions.
Great.
Going back to that landscape that you had, did you know where that was what that is of the
No,
location? Okay,
no, we don't. This one
yeah.
is, it could be any river in Maine. It could be the Penobscot River. It's hard to say.
Yeah. And Carolyn asks, all photos then were black and white, right? I would think that the fact that paintings were in color would be important. And that's kind of an interesting point.
That is a very good point. That would definitely, I mean, we love beautiful colors, and that would definitely be something that painting had over photographs for sure. Especially, you know, Harriet's beautiful uh, red sofa and black outfit is very striking, and that definitely wouldn't come out in a photograph at all. The red would be black, so it would all just be black. Very good point. And with the gold accents as well. This is definitely a much more striking and rich image than a photograph would be. Great, thank you so much. I love your comments. Thank you so much for joining us. We love having you with us here, and we will continue to do more peeks into paintings. We'll be here again next Friday at noon. We are so grateful to our members and our donors who make these events and videos possible. We're very grateful to the National Endowment for the Humanities, Exploring the Human Endeavor. Thank you very much for being with us here today, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.